All right. Welcome back, everybody. Hope you feel refreshed before we dive in on minutes. Um, One thing I'll say before we get started on this is minutes are tricky, right? Like it's hard to know how much to include, what to exclude. Um, then there's, your board's preference. And so I'm going to run through some general guidelines for you, but it really is an art. And I think it's something that you sort of fine tune over time. We do have some examples that on our website so that you can see how to record certain things and certain details that have to be recorded. And we'll point to those after the slides. But just know, and they're tricky, but they are important. They are the historical record of what your board actions are. So, and they need to be kept in perpetuity. So that's another thing. That's just know that whatever you're recording is there, forever. So we want to make sure they're a quality product and something we can be proud of. So we'll dig in on meeting minutes for districts. And again, this topic is sort of intertwined, being that it's all the sunshine laws pieces. Some of these details are going to be the same from one presentation to the next, but the public records and public information compiled by the agencies of North Carolina government are the property of the people. Therefore, it's the policy of North Carolina that the people may obtain copies of their records and public information free or at minimal cost unless otherwise specifically provided by law. So we do have to give access to those meeting minutes to the public since they are a public record. The Public Records Act talks about what sorts of things are public records. You can see there are a wide variety of details, documents, papers, letters, but then even things like artifacts and other documentary materials. A lot of districts house aerial photographs, historic aerial photographs. That's definitely a public record and something we need to maintain. So. And again, this open meetings law, we need to make sure that we notice our meetings, provide public access to the meetings, and record the meetings through the keeping of minutes. So those decisions are important and we have record of them. And then this slide is a repeat from the last one, but it is important. So these are the meetings that have to be open to the public. Anytime a quorum, which is typically 3 or more of your board members get together, then we have to notice those meetings and keep minutes of those meetings themselves. The minutes, again, can be kept in writing or in the form of audio or video recordings. I think most of our districts are doing written minutes. And again, they are those public records. We have to keep the general account of the closed session actions. And they need to be kept in perpetuity. And then I have a little note here, don't rely on SharePoint. So we do have SharePoint for you to submit copies of your meeting minutes to the division as that's required under your master agreement. So that's something that you have to do once the minutes are approved at a board meeting, you upload them to SharePoint, and that's your mechanism for submitting them to us. But we do clean out SharePoint from time to time. So, every few years we just will purge some things because, obviously file storage is expensive and the minutes that you keep need to be kept in your office. Or if you keep them some other place, that's okay too, as long as we have reference to them in perpetuity. So I think that Department of Cultural Resources actually was microfilming minutes at one point. I think it was a service that was provided so that they could be kept in the state archives in perpetuity. So if anybody's interested in that, let me know and we can do some digging to see if they are still doing that, providing that as a service. Because again, when you're keeping minutes for forever, eventually you're going to run out of space. So that might be a nice option for districts to have if that's something you're interested in. So some tips for good meeting minutes. Sometimes less is more. So they need to be a record of decisions. It's not a transcript. It doesn't have to be word for word what someone said or shared with the board. But that said, some districts supervisors do like a little bit more detail in there. So you've kind of got to learn and balance what gets included. The approved version should be physically signed so that there's no question regarding the final draft. So that is a practice that we encourage districts to do. You should be signing them once they're approved so that we don't have to think about, well, is this where we ended up, or did we make some changes to this? So if you'll physically sign that final version, then we know that that's sort of their stamp of approval. I would record times in the minutes, the time the meeting started and ended. Also closed session, the time you go into closed session, the time you come out of closed session. That's sort of an important detail to include. And then also, just as an efficiency standpoint, some districts do use consent agendas for things like approving meeting minutes from a previous meeting, or approving some general reports that are submitted in writing beforehand. So consent agenda might be something that you consider doing. Our state commission does use a consent agenda for several topics each meeting, and that does provide some efficiency in what we do. And in terms of who signs the minutes, some districts have staff sign them. Some districts have your board secretary sign them. I think either is fine, just as long as you have a process that's been approved by the board. I would just follow that consistently. And then some cost share reminders. So these are things that are important to include related to our state cost share programs in your minutes. And again, I'll show you an example that sort of runs through these. But for applications, we have to record the application number, the practice, and the ranking score. The name can also be included. That's optional. I know some districts don't share the name of the applicant, just to so there's no bias in the decision making of their board, but it is something that can be shared. It's just your board's preference. Then for contracts, again, you'll want to record that contract number, the practice, and the amount. And again, name is optional. Even if you don't share the name prior to contract approval, I would still encourage you to be sharing those names with your board members once the contracts are approved, because I think it's important for them to know the folks in their community that are participating in our programs. That way they can, talk to them about their experience or challenges, or, get feedback on how we can improve things. So I do think it's good to share who participates, but maybe not necessarily before decisions are made. And then for requests for payments, if they're signed at the board meeting, it should be an action item. And in your minutes, you would include the contract number and amount, and again, that optional name. Some districts have delegated signature authority so that request for payment can be signed by a district supervisor outside of a board meeting. But if that's done, then it should be recorded as an informational item at the next meeting. And then you would include the contract number, the amount, the date it was signed, and who signed it. If there are board members that have to abstain from a vote due to financial interest, we definitely want to record that in the meeting minutes. And then again, we have these examples of minutes and agendas on the division website. So I'll pull those up when we get through these slides. I've got just a couple more. And then, so again, more information. These general statutes, that Open Governments Guide has some details related to minutes. We do have that public records request guidance on our website. And then that Coates Canons, again, I do love that resource. So that's all the slides I have. And let me walk you to our website where those example minutes are posted. So once again, we're going to the Soil and Water Districts tab, the resources. And then I think we have it in a couple places, but I know it's under this district confidentiality that we just looked at. So you've got an example meeting agenda here. And so this walks you through, some of the background or the preliminary things that get done, information items, then action items, then conclusion. You don't have to use this format, but it is a reference, and hopefully it's useful to you. And then also the example meeting minutes sort of flow along with that agenda. So it's got everything sort of laid out in the same order as it is on that example agenda. In here, when we have things like contract approvals, um, we put them in a little table in the example. I think that's kind of a nice way to list information so that it's clear. But you can see for the applications, we've got the application number, the practice, and then the ranking score. And we do have that optional name listed for this example. And then the contracts, that contract number, the practice, and the amount. And there is some language in here about someone abstaining from vote, so you can see what that looks like or how to word something like that. Let's see. They also have the recording of how to enter closed session and the time that they entered, and then you can see sort of what the general account looks like, and then the motion to return to open session. So these examples, they may be very small. I'm sorry, guys. These examples have some good detail that may be a good reference for you as you work on your minutes. And they are in Microsoft Word format, so feel free to just take them and use them and fill in your information for your district, for your meetings. Maybe we don't have anything in here about abstaining from vote. Huh. Well, I'm going to add that because I think having that language would be useful as a point of reference. So that's definitely something I can add, and we'll update what we have on our website.
I did see, I think, what you're talking about. If you go down to the bottom, yeah, go down to the last page.
Okay.
It said supervisor.
Oh, there it is. There it
Yeah.
is. There it is.
Yeah.
So in this case, Supervisor Earl did not vote on the application, participate in any discussion, or attempt to influence the vote in any way due to financial interest in the property. So you can sort of see, thank you, Brandy. I knew it was in here. I just couldn't put my eyes on it. So yeah, that's an example for you guys. Any questions related to minutes, just general? Okay. Well, we do also have a fun little minutes activity.
Woohoo.
All right, so this is a set of minutes that is really bad. Okay, so I just wanted to share a couple of examples and maybe get some feedback from you guys about, what could be done to improve these. And this one is really bad. So the next one is a little bit, might be a little bit better, but anything, yeah, who is everyone? So this one says the meeting started, everyone was there. We mostly talked about some stuff that needs to get done soon. Yeah, some stuff, no timestamps. Someone asked, yeah, like who did these things? I mean, this doesn't even say the date of the meeting, right? Like this is like very poor minutes. No location, correct. And then just the general tone. I mean, these are a permanent record of what your board did, right? So you want it to be more precise and, not use jargon and things like that.
I love that there's not even any like topics at all.
Sounds like
There's
gossiping
like
to your
something
friend.
about the
Yes.
project, but there's no like.
Yeah.
Love
And I
that.
know sometimes, you might not follow every finer detail of a discussion, right? Especially if you're a newer staff and you're just catching up on some things, but talk to the other folks in your office. And I know a lot of districts will have other staff review the minutes before they even share them with the board as a draft, just to say, did I get all your points correct? Or do you have anything that you want me to add to your portion of it, just to make things more clear? So, all right, let's see if we have some that are a little bit better. Not much.
These are fun. Meeting was about general stuff and a few other things. Love that.
Like 8 or something. Yeah. People there. That intern kid. Gotta love that kid. So, first and last names are important. I know sometimes districts will include like other members of the public in their list of participants. I don't think that's required since they're not, voting on things or that sort of thing. But if you have folks that make like public comments during the meeting, I think that those would be important names to include. And speaking of public comments, county commissioners are required to offer a public comment period at least once a month, but districts are not required to do that. So I know if the public comes to our meetings, you want to offer them some space to share their concerns, but I would encourage you to put together, a public comment policy. So once again, you can be consistent in dealing with members of the public. You don't want them to derail your meetings and your district progress. So that is something that could sort of happen, especially if there's a particularly controversial issue or something like that that comes up. And we do have some examples of public comment policies from districts. So if anybody's interested in that, just let me know and we can share that. I'm not sure it's posted on the website because it is from a district. So if we can get permission from them, I would post it, but at least we have it as a resource to distribute. Yeah, so let's see. Yeah, these are really pretty sad minutes. Getting a little bit better. Right. Need to write with authority, right? So, these very sloppy, using jargon. What do you all think about bullet points? I think they're perfectly fine. I think they have their place. It does sort of make things a little bit easier to read at times. Um, I don't know that I'd do my whole set of minutes with bullets, but I think it could work. Under section headers, that I think would be reasonable.
At least this one is like better, but it is hard to track what has happened. Like I still don't know what transpired in this meeting. You know what I mean? Like it's a
Right.
bit more descriptive, but it like if this was my only interaction with the meeting was reading these minutes, I'd be confused about what happened.
Well, and I think I'll be
Yeah.
honest, I used Chat GPT to get some example terrible minutes. And I think
No, I love that.
these are more for a like an informal meeting, not necessarily
Oh,
like a meeting of a public body, right? So
got it.
these would be formatted a little bit differently, I think, depending on, what is the purpose for the minutes that you're keeping. So some common issues, again, we have vague language. We don't like that. We don't like something or maybe or stuff. Unclear responsibilities. So if there are actions that are taken and then some follow-up that needs to be done, you want to record that. Lack of structure, things are scattered and unorganized. They're missing the decisions. And then just the unprofessional tone. And then that attendance list, failure to record everyone present makes it hard to follow up or ensure accountability. So we do have, as the good example, those minutes on our website, and I hope you all will sort of reference those and feel free again just to take them and use them. They are in Word format. Minutes are something that they look at when they do program reviews of your district. So I don't know if, I know this crowd is probably pretty new. You might not have been through a program review yet, but once every 5 years, by rule, our state cost share staff is required to come to your district office and review your implementation of our state cost share programs. So they are going to be looking at your minutes. I will say they hold up the ones on our website as an example, and that would be an easy way to get some very positive feedback during the review if you're using some of the templates that we provide. So, oh, Catherine just went through the review last month. How'd it go? Your minutes got critiqued. I see. Yeah. Yeah, I mean that is part of the process, and so it's a learning process. It's really a chance for training. You have one-on-one interaction with your cost share staff and your district ops staff, and really it's just a chance to try to figure out how to improve your program implementation. So changes about opening statements and how you present your contracts. So that example agenda does have those opening statements that are encouraged. So if folks are looking for that language, that's included here. We do have the conflict of interest statement, and then the statement of professionalism. So both of those are included on that example agenda, and it would be a really good thing for you to implement in your district if you're not already. I see Catherine's typing. Oh, critiqued for how the board votes. Interesting. So what was going on, or do you want to share, or you don't feel like you have to, but it might be beneficial for this group to, hear some things. Oh, you didn't have an appointed person when the chair was absent. Okay, so having a vice chair is a good idea because, people can't always be at every meeting every time. So it's important to have a backup. I think our statute requires that the district boards have a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary. A lot of boards also have a treasurer, or they have an office that is a secretary treasurer shared. Those are okay and extra, but those three are the three that are required by statute. So the chair, the vice chair, and the secretary.
But I'll add, we also got, it led to a discussion. There's confusion, major confusion. So we had John Beck and Shelby there and telling us, you need to have somebody appointed to sign when Craig Fraser's not present. And then we had a vote of who could sign. But then at the next board meeting, Craig said the person who was voted in to sign, he should not have been voting to sign, because now it becomes a conflict of interest to him. Like,
Right.
we got a big tutorial on how do you make motions and who can approve the motions and who do you appoint to sign and who can make that motion. If you're being nominated, you're not supposed to be making a motion to allow yourself to sign.
Right.
And it was messy. It was a
Yeah.
really uncomfortable session.
You've got to think about those conflicts of interest, or even just the appearance, excuse me, the appearance of a conflict of interest is, that's just as bad as the conflict itself, right? We want the public to think we're doing things in an open way, and so we want to make sure that we practice as best we can to avoid those conflicts.
Right.
But in general, I would say if the chair is not there, the vice chair typically runs the meeting. And the things to be signed, I would say, would be whoever's chairing the meeting at the time, I think would be the appropriate person to sign off on those things that are approved. So maybe that helps a little bit. How many supervisors must be present to vote? That's a good question. So to pass the motion, you have to have the majority vote, right? And to have a quorum at the meeting, you have to have 3 members present for a 5-member board. If one abstains from voting, then you only have 2 folks that are voting on an item. That is still okay. It's not the best look. And if it can wait until another meeting when more folks are present, that's fine. But as long as you have the quorum at the meeting, then you can conduct business, even if somebody's abstaining. So I think the minutes, if you read them carefully, I think there's a piece where, well, where that board member did abstain, they still were able to take action on those contracts. And I think there, in those example minutes, there are only 3 members present. So if you read them carefully, you can kind of dig in on that. So, and how many to hold a meeting would be 3 once again. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Thank you guys for your input on those very poor meeting minutes. Hopefully that was a little bit fun for us.
Yeah, a fun exercise in critical thinking, because you don't always like realize, but if you can just think about it from like a critical eye, or like think about it from like well, if somebody had never read these minutes or been to a meeting, would they generally understand the important details of what happened? And if you can answer yes, then you probably have pretty good minutes. If you're like, no, then you definitely might want to revisit how it's written, kind of thing. But at least that's a good place to start. Um, you know. So I think it's very helpful to have all the examples, good and bad. Helps you decipher your own way of doing things. So I think that's great, Christina. Does anyone have any final questions for Christina as we begin to kind of wrap up today, or any thoughts or experiences that you've had that now you're like, not so sure. Maybe I want to unwrap that right here with Christina on the line.
I
So
have
feel free to do that.
I
Yeah.
have one
Yeah.
comment. Brandy, Christina, the one board member at our last board meeting said, I don't, so much is presented at the supervisor's training meeting, and then I don't know, I don't know how to process all of it and where to access that information later on. And so we were discussing, some of us were saying, well, it's on the division website, but just so you know, one supervisor was for Randolph County was asking, it'd be nice if it was a much easier access to everything that's presented. We didn't get a copy of the PowerPoint presentations. We're just sitting in a room, seeing everything. And then, I know we're supposed to remember, but it's hard to remember everything, says the supervisor. So how do we access it later on? And
If you don't mind me asking, was this for the basic training or the advanced supervisor training, or both?
basic, because this was
The one
one
in
of our newer
February?
board members.
Okay.
So similar to the one I attended in January at our state meeting.
Okay.
Um, so I just didn't know if it's a packaging issue that the supervisors want something that's easier to access instead of mining through all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Christina, feel free to chime in. I think that although the training program has mostly been geared towards helping district staff navigate their careers, I do see the training program growing more and more to help the supervisor training initiative. So hopefully we will find ways to package and post materials and things like that. So maybe Christina can add more, but we've started to do a very small amount of that, but it's still, I think, figuring out the balance between, um, you know, who the training program aims to serve primarily, and then where can we fit in and help otherwise. Because I know we've done something similar for the advanced supervisor training, but I'm not sure that we did that for like basic training.
Yeah. And it is for those new supervisors and even for staff that participate in that. It's like drinking from a fire hose, right? It's
Yeah.
so much information crammed into a 6-hour day, and you're probably pretty exhausted by the time you get out of there listening to everything. So it would be nice to have everything sort of on a page as a point of reference. So I can definitely pass that along to Brian Evans as a recommendation from a district, a recent participant. Yeah.
I'd love at one point, and I just haven't done it yet, but and you can pass along to Brian, but I would love like a supervisor hub on the training website, you know, kind of like the new employee. So
Yeah, that
maybe
would be great.
one day. Any other questions or thoughts that you guys want to run past Christina? Well, I think that might be it, Christina. Thank you
All
so
right.
much for
Yeah,
your
thank you.
information. This was so helpful. Thank you guys for tuning in. I love these topics, and I'm so glad we do have this on recording. So I will clip this, and I'm that my priority now is to get all the new employee stuff updated. I know it's been a while. Thank you guys for being patient with me getting video editing and stuff, but I will send you guys an email once everything is dumped on the new employee hub. So hopefully very soon within the next month, everything will be accessible and all these links. And I will get Christina's slideshows and things from her. But if you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me or Christina, or your regional coordinator is a great resource, as she mentioned, for all of these topics. They are very well versed in these. And if they're getting caught up to speed on one of these topics, they are so good about knowing who to talk to and finding the answers for you. So I always recommend those regional coordinators, just like Christina does. So thank you guys. And yeah, we will chat with you guys soon. Have a great rest of your week.
Take care, everybody.